While fighting stage 3 breast cancer, I discovered my husband emptying our accounts to fund his secret life. What he didn't know, I'd already secured a $500,000 insurance policy that he couldn't touch, and as I lay in chemotherapy listening to his lies, I was planning exactly how to make him pay for his betrayal. 3 rounds of chemotherapy. That's how long I'd been fighting, not just for my life, but apparently for my financial survival as well. 3 brutal months during which my husband Porter had been systematically draining the savings accounts we'd built over 15 years of marriage. Before we jump back in, tell us where you're tuning in from, and if this story touches you, make sure you're subscribed, because tomorrow I've saved something extra special for you. As I lay in the oncology ward, tracking his betrayal through banking alerts on my phone, I realized that surviving cancer might only be the first battle. The second would be saving myself from the man who'd promised to stand by me, in sickness and in health. The nausea from today's treatment is barely manageable, but it's nothing compared to the sickness I felt watching our retirement account balance drop by another $25,000 this morning. Porter thinks the notifications only go to our joint email, the one he now controls. He doesn't know about the separate alerts I set up last year when his behavior first started changing. Small precautions that seemed paranoid then but feel prophetic now. The oncology nurse adjusts my IV, her movements practiced and gentle. "Your husband called, said he's running late again. Work emergency." Her sympathetic smile tells me everything. This is the 3rd treatment in a row he's missed. The excuses are always the same, always just plausible enough. "Thanks, Denise. I'm used to it by now," I manage, trying to keep the bitterness from my voice. What I don't say, while he claims to be at work, his location sharing shows he's at a condo complex across town. The same location where $4,000 of our money paid for furniture last month. My phone vibrates with a text from Uncle Frank. Finished analyzing those statements. "Call me when you're alone. It's worse than we thought." I close my eyes, letting the rhythmic beeping of the medical equipment mask the sound of my rapidly beating heart. Uncle Frank, my mother's brother and a forensic accountant who spent 30 years tracking financial crimes, has been my silent ally for the past month. When the first unexplained withdrawals appeared, he was the one who showed me how to document everything without alerting Porter. Another patient's family arrives, their hushed voices and forced cheerfulness filling the treatment room. I envy their solidarity, the way they circle protectively around their loved one. My support system has been whittled down over the years. Friends gradually disconnected, family kept at arm's length. I see the pattern now, too late. Porter had been isolating me long before he started draining our accounts. The diagnosis 6 months ago should have brought us closer. Instead, it became his opportunity. While I was consumed with surgical consultations and treatment plans, he was consulting with banks and planning his exit. The first warning sign came when he insisted on managing all the medical bills to reduce my stress. His newfound financial attentiveness seemed like love then. Now I recognize it as calculation. The betrayal isn't just financial. My latest scans show progress, the tumors are shrinking, but Porter has been telling his family my prognosis is poor. I discovered this by accident when his sister called, tearfully asking if I needed anything in these final months. Her shock when I told her my actual prognosis was almost comical. Almost. I secretly recorded that conversation, along with dozens of others. Evidence gathering, another skill Uncle Frank taught me. Document everything, he'd said. Judges like paper trails. Denise returns to check my vitals, her efficiency comforting in a world that's become unpredictable. "Your color's better today," she observes, making notes on my chart. I force a smile. I feel stronger. It's not entirely a lie. The rage burning inside provides its own kind of strength. As she moves to the next patient, I pull out my tablet. Clicking through secure folders filled with financial records, Porter believes I'm too sick, too tired, too overwhelmed to notice what he's doing. Cancer patients are supposed to be focused on survival, not spreadsheets. His underestimation is my advantage. Through the treatment room window, I watch Porter's silver Audi pull into the premium parking space, the one reserved for patients too weak to walk far. He's 40 minutes late, but he'll arrive with flowers and apologies, playing the devoted husband for the medical staff. They all think he's wonderful, so attentive when he's here. I close the financial apps and open a medical website instead. Porter knows nothing about my secret account, the insurance policy I purchased after my mother died from the same cancer 3 years ago. Before my diagnosis, before his betrayal, I'd been pragmatic about our financial future. The $500,000 policy was meant to protect him if history repeated itself. Now, it's my protection against him. As he approaches, I school my features into grateful weakness. I've become an excellent actress, perhaps the only good thing to come from this betrayal. I've learned to appear more tired than I am, more dependent, more oblivious. Each sign of weakness on my part makes him bolder, more careless. "Hey, sweetheart." His voice carries that perfect note of concern as he leans in to kiss my forehead. The same voice that, according to my hidden recorder, told his girlfriend last night that it won't be much longer before he can put this chapter behind him. The irony isn't lost on me. Porter works in risk assessment for an insurance company, evaluating the likelihood of disaster scenarios. Yet he failed to assess the risk of betraying a woman with a forensic accountant in the family. My phone vibrates. Again, Uncle Frank sending documentation of the latest transfers. Porter notices my phone screen lighting up and reaches for it with casual possessiveness. "I'll put this in your bag, honey. You should rest." I release the phone, watching as he slides it into my purse, out of my reach. Another small control tactic I once mistook for caregiving. "How are you feeling today?" he asks, taking the visitor's chair beside me, flowers balanced in his lap. "Like I'm finally seeing things clearly," I answer truthfully. He nods sympathetically, misinterpreting my meaning. The doctors said the mental fog would lift eventually. If only he knew how completely the fog has lifted, while the chemicals drip into my veins, chemicals fighting to keep me alive, I'm mapping out a different kind of survival. Porter thinks he's watching me fade away, but I'm not the one who's going to disappear. Uncle Frank has already helped me secure copies of all critical financial records. We've documented every unauthorized withdrawal, every transfer, every lie on financial forms. Most importantly, we've traced the money, following Porter's digital breadcrumbs to accounts I'm not supposed to know exist, and to people I'm not supposed to know about. As Porter chatters about trivial things, carefully avoiding any mention of our finances, I maintain my facade of tired gratitude. The insurance policy paperwork is already with my lawyer. The policy Porter never knew about because he never bothered to involve himself in the depressing planning after my mother's death. Cancer taught me that some battles must be fought quietly, strategically, with the long game in mind. As I watch, Porter check his watch for the third time in 20 minutes. I know my most important fight isn't against the cells multiplying in my body. It's against the man multiplying our money in accounts he thinks I'll never find. The chemotherapy unit empties as evening approaches. Porter left 2 hours ago with another excuse, a client dinner he couldn't reschedule. The nurses move efficiently between the few remaining patients, their footsteps soft against the polished floor. This late-day quiet is when I do my best. "Work. You're sure about this?" Uncle Frank's voice comes through my earbuds, low and concerned. On my tablet screen, his silver-haired image leans closer to his camera. Behind him, I can see the wall of certificates that testify to his 30 years of following money trails. "Show me everything," I insist, adjusting my position against the reclining chair. The soreness in my port side is a constant reminder of my vulnerability. But right now, knowledge feels like armor. Uncle Frank sighs, then begins sharing his screen. Preparing and narrating this story took us a lot of time, so if you are enjoying it, subscribe to our channel. It means a lot to us. Now back to the story. I've traced the major withdrawals from your joint accounts over the past 6 months. The pattern is systematic. The spreadsheet that appears is color-coded: red for direct transfers to unknown accounts, blue for cash withdrawals, green for purchases with no apparent legitimate purpose. So much red, so much blue, so little green. $347,000, Uncle Frank states flatly. That's the total he's diverted since your diagnosis. The number hits me like a physical blow. Almost all of our accessible savings. The money that was supposed to cover my treatments if our insurance caps out. The safety net we built together, year by careful year. Where did it go? My voice sounds strange, detached. The clinical part of my mind, the part that researched survival rates and treatment protocols when I was first diagnosed, takes over. 3 main destinations. Uncle Frank clicks through to a new screen. Approximately $190,000 went to a private account in his name only, opened 4 months ago. Another $82,000 went to various cash withdrawals, untraceable once they left them ATM, and $75,000 was transferred to a woman named Vanessa Carling. Vanessa. The name feels bitter on my tongue. Not a stranger, then. His assistant. Uncle Frank nods grimly. Former assistant. Current companion, it seems. They've been making some interesting purchases together. Another click. Another. Spreadsheet. Furniture, airline tickets, a lease agreement for a waterfront condo. Each line item tells its own story. A life being built with my money, brick by stolen brick. He's planning to leave. The realization crystallizes, sharp and clear. I think he's already left in every way that matters, Uncle Frank replies gently. The paper trail suggests he's been planning this exit for at least 7 months. Before my diagnosis, then. The timeline lands like another blow. This wasn't opportunistic betrayal, taking advantage of my illness. This was premeditated, the illness simply providing convenient cover. There's more, Uncle Frank continues, his forensic accountant's precision pushing through his personal concern. He's taken out a life insurance policy on you, recently. My hand instinctively moves to my chest, to the surgical scar hidden beneath my sweater. How much? $2 million. Taken out 3 months ago just after your surgery. The timing is damning. After the doctors confirmed the cancer had spread to my lymph nodes, when the prognosis was most uncertain. He's betting on my death. The words hang in the antiseptic air of the treatment room. It looks that way, and he's made himself the sole beneficiary. I think of Porter's sudden interest in my treatment schedule, his questions about prognosis, always when I'm most exhausted, most vulnerable, his insistence on speaking to doctors alone to spare me the details. The way he subtly emphasizes my fatigue, my weakness, when others are watching. Counting on a convenient natural death, I murmur, remembering the call to his sister about my supposedly terminal condition. Uncle Frank's silence is heavy with unspoken concern. Finally, he asks, "Do you feel safe going home tonight?" The question should shock me. Instead, it feels like the logical next step in this unfolding nightmare. Do I feel safe with the man who's been systematically preparing for, perhaps hoping, for my death? He won't do anything obvious, I say, thinking aloud. Porter's too careful, too concerned with appearances. Uncle Frank's expression remains troubled. Financial betrayal and physical danger aren't as separate as people think. In my experience, when there's this much money involved and this much deception, he doesn't finish the thought. He doesn't need to. I have the security system. I remind him. The one I insisted on after a supposed break-in attempt last year. An incident I now question. And I've been keeping detailed records of all my medications. Another precaution that seemed paranoid until this moment. Good, but we need to move quickly now. Uncle Frank shifts to his matter-of-fact tone, the one that has guided corporate fraud investigations and high-profile divorce cases. I've secured copies of all the financial records. The next step is to protect what assets remain. On my screen, he outlines the strategy: documented evidence of fraud, emergency court orders to freeze accounts, reclamation of stolen funds. The legal machinery that can be set in motion. And the insurance policy I took out? I ask. My policy? Untouchable by him. You listed me as the beneficiary, and we have the documentation showing your intent for those funds. Uncle Frank's expression softens. But Anna, I'd rather you beat this cancer and use that money for a beautiful retirement somewhere far away from Porter. I smile, the first genuine smile of the day. That's the plan. But if things go sideways with my health, I want to make sure he gets nothing. Not one penny. He won't, Uncle Frank promises. Now, let's talk about what happens tomorrow. As he outlines next steps. I watch the last light of day fade outside the hospital window. Another patient receives their final medications, preparing to go home to a family that actually cares. The contrast isn't lost on me. My phone chimes with a text from Porter. Dinner running late. Take an Uber home and I'll see you before bed. Such thoughtful abandonment. Such considerate betrayal. I text back. No problem. Feeling tired anyway. See you at home. Each word a small deception that mirrors his larger ones. Uncle Frank catches my expression. What is it? I'm just thinking about all those years I spent believing in our partnership. The life we planned together. My voice wavers slightly, the first crack in my clinical detachment. All while he was plotting his escape route. People like Porter, they compartmentalize, Uncle Frank explains. In his mind, he probably still sees himself as the good guy somehow. And what am I in this story he's telling himself? Uncle Frank's answer is gentle, but unflinching. An obstacle. A complication to be managed. The nurse approaches to disconnect my IV, signaling the end of today's treatment. All done for today, Anna. You did great. If only she knew that the chemicals fighting the cancer aren't the only battle happening inside me. As she removes the needle from my port, I make a decision. Porter has underestimated me for the last time. He sees me as a dying woman, conveniently fading away while he builds his new life. I'm going to show him exactly how alive I still am. Most people don't know that before cancer turned me into poor Anna, the patient. I spent 15 years as a risk compliance officer for Marathon Financial. Porter tells people I worked in banking with a dismissive wave, as if my career was a hobby rather than the source of half our household income. What he's conveniently forgotten, or perhaps never fully appreciated, is that I specialized in detecting financial fraud. I spent my days hunting for irregularities in transaction patterns, identifying shell companies, and tracking money laundering attempts. The irony doesn't escape me. The same skills that made me valuable to Marathon are now my greatest weapon against my husband's betrayal. Our bedroom is dark when Porter finally comes home. I regulate my breathing to mimic sleep, a skill perfected over weeks of late-night surveillance. The mattress dips as he sits on the edge, checking his phone rather than checking on me. The blue glow illuminates his face, revealing a smile I once found charming. Now I see the calculation behind it. Sorry, I missed most of your treatment, he whispers, apparently believing I'm awake despite my performance. The Henderson account needed attention. The Henderson account has been closed for months. Another lie to add to my growing collection. I make a small sound, somewhere between acknowledgement and sleep, and turn away from him. This subtle rejection is a test. One he fails by showing relief rather than concern. When his breathing finally deepens into sleep, I carefully slip out of bed. The house we once shared as partners now feels like enemy territory. I move silently down the hallway to the guest room I've converted into my recovery space. Porter never enters here. Too many visible reminders of cancer make him uncomfortable. In reality, it's become my war room. I unlock the hidden compartment in my jewelry box, a hiding place Porter doesn't know exists, and retrieve the specialized flash drive Uncle Frank provided. Military-grade encryption, he'd explained. Unbreakable. Without the passcode. The kind of security I need for what comes next. My laptop hums to life, screen dimmed to minimize light. I connect to our home network through a hidden VPN, another security measure Porter would never think to check for. His arrogance about my supposed technological incompetence is another advantage. He still fixes my computer problems with condescending patience, never realizing I deliberately create those problems to reinforce his underestimation. Our home banking portal welcomes me with its familiar interface. Porter changed the passwords weeks ago, thinking this would lock me out. He doesn't know that my years at Marathon gave me relationships with banking security officers across the city. People who understood the concept of financial abuse and helped me maintain emergency access. I begin methodically documenting every transaction, creating timestamps and verification codes that will stand up in court. Unlike Porter's clumsy attempts to hide his activities, my digital trail is deliberately visible to the right people. Banking systems record every login, every search, every report generation. I'm creating a documented history of discovery that will devastate any claims he might make about mutual financial decisions. My oncologist, Dr. Patel, calls these late hours the steroid surge, the brief window of artificial energy that comes after treatment before the crushing fatigue returns. I've timed my investigations to coincide with this window, using the medications meant to heal my body to also protect my future. The pattern Porter doesn't see. Every Wednesday after chemotherapy, while he believes I'm asleep, I'm actually building my case against him. The medical calendar that governs my life now also dictates the rhythm of my counterattack. My phone vibrates with a message from Uncle Frank. New transfers found. Check secure folder. I open the encrypted drive to find his latest analysis. Porter has escalated his withdrawals. $50,000 transferred yesterday to the account we've identified as his exit fund. The timing suggests growing urgency. He's accelerating his plan. What triggered this sudden rush? I review recent events, looking for catalysts. 2 days ago, my latest scan showed tumor reduction. Positive news Porter received with a smile that didn't reach his eyes. Yesterday, he took a private call that left him agitated, checking calendar dates repeatedly afterward. The pieces click into place. He's working against a deadline, one tied to my treatment schedule. I pull up the medical calendar I've shared with him. My last scheduled chemotherapy session is marked for October, followed by my comprehensive evaluation. The evaluation that will determine whether the treatment has been successful or if we need to consider more aggressive options. The account transfers are all scheduled to complete 2 days before this evaluation. His planning is specific, targeted. He's waiting for a particular moment to disappear, either when I receive bad news and am at my most vulnerable, or when I receive good news and might lower my guard to celebrate. I send the pattern analysis to Uncle Frank with my theory. His response is immediate. Accelerate our timeline, meeting tomorrow instead of next week. While Googling Porter's symptoms, I once read that cancer operates by corrupting normal cells until they become malignant forces within the body. Porter has undergone his own malignant transformation, from partner to predator. The medical terms feel strangely applicable. Invasive, metastatic, consuming resources meant for growth to feed destruction instead. From the master bedroom, I hear Porter's phone chime with a message. He stirs, checks it, then slips out of bed. His whispered conversation is barely audible, but I don't need to hear the words to know he's talking to Vanessa. Their late-night calls follow a pattern, too. I connect my specialized microphone, another tool from Uncle Frank's investigative arsenal, and record the conversation. Porter's voice grows clearer as he moves to the hallway bathroom, believing the running water will mask his words. Yes, everything's on schedule. The last treatment cycle ends in October. No, she doesn't suspect anything. The accounts will be emptied by then. Yes, I've started moving my personal items gradually. She's too sick to notice missing cufflinks and watches. Each whispered betrayal is captured, time-stamped, and added to my evidence file. Unlike the cancer cells temporarily retreating in my body, the evidence against Porter grows stronger every day. I close my laptop as his footsteps return to the bedroom. Tomorrow's meeting with Uncle Frank will set our countermove in motion. Porter believes he's executing the perfect exit strategy, timed to a vulnerable moment in my treatment. He doesn't realize I've been anticipating his every move, analyzing his patterns with professional precision. In the Financial Crimes Division, at Marathon we had a saying, "Smart criminals follow patterns. Brilliant investigators recognize them first." Porter may believe he's clever, but he's never faced an adversary who specialized in finding people exactly like him. As I return to bed, slipping under the covers without waking him, I allow myself a moment of grim satisfaction. He sleeps peacefully beside me, believing he's just days away from his new life. He doesn't realize he's sleeping next to the financial equivalent of a forensic pathologist, someone trained to reveal the exact cause and manner of a financial death. And I've just completed his autopsy before he's even dead. The oncology center's waiting room has become my unofficial office. Today's appointment isn't until 11 Iscar, but I arrive at 8:30, nodding to the receptionists who no longer question my early arrivals. They assume I'm seeking peace away from home, a partial truth that serves my purposes. "Good morning, Anna." Dr. Patel's voice startles me slightly. She's earlier than usual, white coat crisp, dark hair pulled back in her characteristic tight bun. "You're becoming part of the furniture around here." I smile, closing the financial app on my phone. "It's easier to think clearly here sometimes." She sits beside me, clipboard in hand. The waiting room is otherwise empty, a rare moment of privacy. "Porter not joining you today?" "Business meeting," I reply, the lie coming easily. In reality, Porter is meeting with a real estate agent to discuss selling our house, information gleaned from his unencrypted emails. Dr. Patel's expression shifts subtly. She's careful, professional, but I've noticed her growing skepticism regarding Porter's absences. "Anna, is everything all right at home?" Beyond the obvious cancer challenges, I mean. The question hovers between us. For a moment, I consider confiding in her, adding another ally to my small coalition. But operational security, as Uncle Frank calls it, requires minimum exposure until we're ready to move. "Just the usual adjustment issues," I offer instead. "Cancer changes relationships." "Yes, it does." She hesitates, then continues with measured care. "Sometimes it reveals what was already there." Our eyes meet, and I sense she understands more than she's saying. Dr. Patel has treated hundreds of cancer patients, witnessed countless marriages under the ultimate stress test. She's seen patterns I'm only now recognizing. "Actually," I say, making a calculated decision, "I could use some help with something." She sets her clipboard aside, giving me her full attention. "Of course. I need copies of all my medical records, my full treatment plan and prognosis documentation, and the insurance claim forms. For my personal records." The request sounds innocent enough, but we both know patients rarely ask for such comprehensive documentation. Dr. Patel studies me for a moment. "Is Porter helping manage the insurance paperwork?" "Yes, he's been very involved in that aspect." She nods, understanding flowing between us without explicit confession. "I'll have everything ready before you leave today. Complete records, including the actual prognosis notes from our tumor board meetings." The emphasis on actual confirms my suspicion. Porter has been receiving different information than what's in my official records. Another layer of manipulation. Thank you. The gratitude is genuine. And Dr. Patel, if anyone asks, patient. Requested copies for home reference, she completes smoothly. Standard procedure. As she walks away, I realize I've just gained another ally, one positioned at the intersection of my health and Porter's deception. My phone vibrates with a text from Denise, my favorite oncology nurse. Coffee cart outside, bringing you the usual. This small kindness, remembering I take my coffee with almond milk to settle my post-chemo stomach, is more support than Porter has offered in months. These medical professionals have become more than caregivers. They're witnesses to both my physical struggle and the growing absence beside me. Denise appears with 2 paper cups, settling into the chair Dr. Patel vacated. 15 minutes until your labs. Figured you could use this. You're a lifesaver, I say, accepting the warm cup. Heard anything from the insurance company? She asks casually. Too casually. I look up sharply. About what? Denise hesitates, then lowers her voice. Your husband was asking about how claims are processed for discontinued treatment. Whether insurance still covers if a patient stops coming for scheduled appointments. The implications freeze me more effectively than any chemotherapy drug. When was this? Last week. During your MRI, he seemed very interested in the financial implications of patients who don't complete their treatment protocols. I force my expression to remain neutral while my mind races. Porter is exploring what happens if I mysteriously stop treatment, whether through my choice or because I'm no longer able to attend. Probably just being thorough, I say lightly. Porter's always been careful about insurance details. Denise's eyes narrow slightly. She's been an oncology nurse for 20 years. She's seen every variety of family dynamic under pressure. Anna, we keep very careful records of all medication administration. Very careful, every dose, every time. The message beneath her words is clear. She's watching, documenting, protecting me in ways I hadn't even considered necessary. Thank you, Denise. I meet her gaze directly. For everything. She pats my hand and stands. Lab's probably ready for you. Oh, and Anna, Dr. Patel approved your request to have all treatment administered here rather than any take-home options. For consistency of care. Another protection I hadn't requested but desperately need. No take-home medications means no opportunity for Porter to interfere with my treatment. The medical team is creating a safety barrier without me having to explain why it's necessary. In the lab waiting area, I check my secure messaging app. Uncle Frank has sent the daily financial update. Porter attempted to access my personal account, the one containing my inheritance from Mom, but failed to get past the dual authentication. He doesn't know I changed the security questions months. Ago, replacing answers he would know with information from my life before we met. My mother's maiden name is no longer Collins, but Strength, the quality she told me I would need most during her own final days. My first pet is no longer Rusty, but Survivor, what she made me promise to be. Porter's predictability becomes more apparent with each failed attempt. He's working through our accounts methodically, from most accessible to most secure. His next target will likely be my retirement fund, the account I quietly rolled over to a new financial institution last month, cited as a cancer patient financial protection program. The lab technician calls my name, and I tuck my phone away. As she draws blood to check my counts, I realize I'm developing a network of protectors, medical professionals who see the disturbing patterns in Porter's behavior, financial experts, who understand the architecture of his betrayal, and my own professional knowledge providing the framework to connect these insights. Porter believes I'm isolated, a vulnerable woman with dwindling physical resources and compromised mental clarity. He doesn't realize I'm building an alliance of experts uniquely qualified to combat his specific brand of betrayal. The technician labels my blood samples with practiced efficiency. You're looking stronger today, Anna. I smile, thinking of the evidence accumulating in my secure drive, the documentation being assembled by Dr. Patel, the watchful protection of the nursing staff, and Uncle Frank's financial fortress. I am stronger, I reply truthfully. Every day. What Porter fails to understand about cancer patients: we become experts at fighting invisible enemies, at marshaling resources when we seem weakest, at recognizing that survival sometimes requires strategic retreats before the decisive counterattack. He's betting on my defeat, but I've been in this battle much longer than he realizes, and I've developed skills he cannot imagine. The autumn rain taps against the kitchen window as I prepare a simple breakfast. Toast I probably won't eat, and ginger tea to settle my persistent nausea. Porter left early for a breakfast meeting downtown, another entry in his growing ledger of absences. These quiet mornings alone have become valuable reconnaissance time. My laptop sits open on the counter, displaying what appears to be a cancer support forum but is actually a secure connection to Uncle Frank's analysis system. The innocent-looking website is our cover. If Porter happens to glance at my screen, he'll see only what appears to be other cancer patients sharing coping strategies. We need to talk about Vanessa, Uncle Frank says through my earbuds. She's more involved than we initially thought. I sip my tea, clicking through to what looks like a forum thread but is actually financial documentation. Show me. She's not just the girlfriend. She's the co-conspirator. Uncle Frank's image appears in what seems to be a profile picture, but is our secure video connection. The condo lease lists her as the primary tenant, but the application shows expected occupancy of 2 adults, submitted 3 months ago. The timeline pierces me anew. 3 months ago, I was celebrating my first clear scan. The tumor had responded to initial treatment. Porter had brought champagne home. We'd toasted to beating this thing together, while planning his exit strategy with another woman. There's more, Uncle Frank continues. Vanessa recently accepted a position at Meridian Financial. I nearly dropped my mug. Meridian is Porter's company's biggest competitor. He's changing jobs? It appears so, but the timing is suspicious. Meridian doesn't typically hire lateral positions from direct competitors unless they're bringing client information with them. I finish, my banking compliance experience filling in the blanks. They're planning corporate espionage. Uncle Frank nods grimly. I found communications suggesting Porter has been gathering proprietary client information from his current firm. The kind of information that would violate his non-compete agreement and potentially constitute corporate theft. I process this new dimension of betrayal. Not just personal and financial, but professional. The scale of Porter's deception keeps expanding. Concentric circles of fraud that extend beyond our marriage. What about the money transfers? Are they just funding the new life, or is there more? Uncle Frank clicks to a new document. This is where it gets complicated. Some funds are clearly personal: furniture, travel, the condo. But a significant portion, about $120,000, went to establish what appears to be a shell company, Lakeside Consulting. Registered to Vanessa? I guess. Correct. On paper, it's a financial advisory firm. In reality, it seems to be a vehicle for transferring client relationships away from Porter's current employer before he makes his move. The professional implications are staggering. Porter isn't just stealing from me. He's stealing from his employer, planning to deliver client relationships to their competitor for what would undoubtedly be a substantial signing bonus. A new message pops up on my secure line, an alert from the tracking software I installed on our home network. Someone has accessed our shared cloud storage using Porter's credentials, but not from any of his known devices. We have another player, I tell. Uncle Frank forwarding the alert. Someone else is accessing our files. Uncle Frank's fingers fly across his keyboard. IP address traces to Meridian Financial's corporate headquarters. Someone at Meridian is reviewing our personal files. The violation sends a chill through me. Not someone. Their legal department. Uncle Frank's expression darkens. They're doing due diligence on Porter before bringing him aboard, checking for potential complications, like a cancer-stricken wife who might create messy obligations. I think of the conversations I've overheard, the fragments that now align into a coherent picture. Porter hasn't just been planning to leave me. He's been presenting me as a liability he's managing, a problem with a predictable endpoint. The doorbell interrupts my thoughts. According to our security system, no vehicles have approached. Someone has come on foot. I need to go, I tell Uncle Frank, closing the secure connection and switching my screen to an actual cancer support forum, my ready camouflage. Through the peephole, I see a woman I don't recognize, professional attire, leather portfolio under her arm. I open the door cautiously, security chain still engaged. Anna Matthews? Her smile is practiced, pleasant. I'm Caroline Weber from Meridian Financial. I was hoping to speak with Porter. The audacity steals my breath. Coming to our home. Using his real name but not identifying herself as what she clearly is. A representative checking on his transition plans. He's at a meeting, I reply, studying her. Is he expecting you? A flicker of uncertainty crosses her face. Not exactly. This is more of a follow-up on some paperwork. She hesitates, then adds with careful sympathy. I understand you've been unwell. I hope I'm not disturbing your rest. The condescension is subtle, but unmistakable. She's been briefed on me, the inconvenient, dying wife. The complication being managed. Actually, I'm feeling quite well today, I reply with deliberate brightness. My last scan showed significant tumor reduction. The doctors are very optimistic. Her expression freezes momentarily. This clearly contradicts whatever narrative Porter has presented. That's wonderful news, isn't it? Porter is so relieved. He's been beside himself with worry. I lean against the doorframe, projecting casual strength I don't entirely feel. I'll let him know you stopped by, Ms. Weber, from Meridian Financial. I emphasize the company name, watching her reaction. The slight widening of her eyes confirms my suspicion. Porter has compartmentalized his betrayals, keeping certain parties unaware of others. This woman didn't expect me to know about Meridian. Thank you, she replies, handing me a business card through the gap in the door. Have him call me at his convenience. As she walks away, I examine the card. Caroline Weber, Transition Specialist Human Resources. Not legal department as Uncle Frank's trace suggested, but HR, specifically focused on bringing Porter into the company. I photograph the card and send it to Uncle Frank before returning to the kitchen, mind racing with implications. Porter's betrayal has co-conspirators beyond Vanessa, professional accomplices helping facilitate his transition, while I supposedly fade away from cancer. My phone chimes with a calendar alert. Oncology appointment in 2 hours. Porter promised to meet me there, a commitment I now recognize as empty. He'll have a last-minute work emergency, another client crisis requiring his immediate attention. I send a text to Denise at the oncology center. Coming alone again today. Could use friendly faces. Her reply is immediate. We've got you. Dr. Patel wants to review scan results anyway. Good news to share. Good news Porter doesn't expect, doesn't want. News that disrupts his carefully constructed timeline. I gather my medical bag and keys, rehearsing my performance for when I next see my husband. The slightly weakened voice, the careful movement suggesting more fatigue than I actually feel. The role of the declining patient that feeds his confidence and carelessness. As I drive to the oncology center, I realize Porter has created an extensive network to facilitate his betrayal. Vanessa, Meridian Financial, possibly others I haven't yet identified. But he failed to consider that I might create my own network. Uncle Frank with his forensic expertise, Dr. Patel with her medical authority, Denise with her protective watchfulness. Porter believes he's the architect of an inevitable conclusion. He doesn't yet understand that I'm reconstructing the very foundation beneath his feet and preparing for it to give way precisely when he believes he's standing most secure. In the quiet of the oncology center's meditation room, waiting for my blood counts to be processed, memories surface like artifacts revealed by receding water. The signs were always there, breadcrumbs of betrayal I was too busy surviving to notice. 8 months ago, before the diagnosis, Porter began working late every Tuesday and Thursday. A new client with complex needs, he explained. His cologne changed around the same time, subtly more expensive, applied more carefully. I'd noticed, but dismissed it as a midlife refresh, perhaps an attempt to impress senior partners. Now I recognize those Tuesdays and Thursdays align perfectly with Vanessa's yoga schedule, information gleaned from her public social media accounts. The cologne, according to my online research of the brand, costs $300 per bottle, far more than Porter would typically spend on himself, but exactly the kind of gift a younger woman might select. The hospital chapel's stained glass casts colored, shadows across my hands as I turn my wedding ring, a habit I maintain for public appearances. 6 months ago, Porter suggested I store it in the bedside drawer, so it doesn't catch on your medical port. A thoughtful precaution, it seemed then. Now I understand he was gradually removing symbols of our marriage, creating distance in incremental, deniable ways. 5 months ago, Porter insisted on renovating his home office with a new locking file cabinet. Client confidentiality requirements, he claimed. I respected his professional boundaries, never questioning what those files might contain. The renovation coincided with the second round of my chemotherapy, when my energy was lowest, my attention most diverted by physical survival. The cabinet, I now know, holds duplicate passports, alternative identification documents, and financial records for accounts I wasn't meant to discover. Uncle Frank found the cabinet manufacturer's digital record showing a hidden compartment in the design, an expensive custom feature Porter specified. 4 months ago came the estate planning update Porter characterized as routine maintenance. I signed documents while nauseated from treatment, trusting his summary rather than reading the dense legal text. Those documents, according to Uncle Frank's recent analysis, included clauses that significantly reduced my claim to our joint assets, in the event of separation. Just standard updated language, Porter had assured me, hand steady as he held the pen for my shaking signature. 3 months ago, Porter began subtly emphasizing my fatigue to friends and family. Anna's good days are becoming rarer, he told my cousin on the phone while I napped on the couch. We're trying to stay positive, but preparing for all scenarios. This conversation happened the day after my oncologist had told us both that my response to treatment was exceeding expectations. The pattern continued. Porter gradually constructing a narrative of my decline while the medical reality showed improvement. Building an alibi, I now realize. Creating witnesses who would testify to his devotion during my failing health. 2 months ago, Porter suggested moving my personal items from our shared home office to create a restful space for my recovery. The thoughtful rearrangement effectively removed my access to our household files, tax records, property documents, investment statements, information I would need to track his financial movements. What I didn't tell him, I'd already scanned every critical document, storing encrypted copies with Uncle Frank and in secure cloud storage Porter couldn't access. 6 weeks ago came the most calculated move of all. During a rare good day between treatments, I mentioned returning to work part-time after my treatment concluded. Let's see how you feel, Porter replied, expression carefully neutral. Your short-term disability coverage extends for 6 months. There's no rush to decide anything. The next day, he contacted HR at my company to discuss long-term leave options and transition planning should I be unable to return to my position. I discovered this only because my former assistant still forwards messages she considers important, including HR's response outlining extended leave possibilities. Porter wasn't planning for my return to work. He was laying groundwork for my permanent absence from my career. 1 month ago, Porter began moving physical items so subtly I almost missed it. The expensive watch my parents gave him as a wedding gift disappeared from his drawer. His winter clothes never came up from seasonal storage in the basement. His favorite books vanished one by one from our shelves, not leaving all at once, but gradually extracting himself. A slow, calculated erosion of his presence in our home. 2. Weeks ago, I overheard him on the phone discussing October 15th as a transition date. My final scheduled treatment is October 14th. The timing is not coincidental. The meditation room door opens as Denise appears with my lab results. Your counts look good, she says, handing me the printout. Dr. Patel's ready to see you. I tuck away these memories, these warning signs I can now see with painful clarity. Each recalled moment is another piece of evidence, another thread in the tapestry of betrayal I'm methodically documenting. Porter calculated his moves assuming cancer would consume all my attention and energy. He failed to realize that fighting for my life has made me more observant, not less, more attuned to threats of all kinds, more determined to survive them all. The warning signs weren't missed. They were simply filed away, waiting for the moment I had the strength to address them. That moment has arrived. The first sign that Porter's timeline has accelerated comes in the form of a missed pill. My nightly medication routine is precise. Antiemetics, to control nausea, steroids to counteract inflammation, sleep aids to combat the insomnia that comes with treatment. Each pill is counted, monitored, necessary. Tonight, the small white tablet that prevents acid reflux, a common side effect of my chemotherapy regimen, isn't in its compartment in my pill organizer. Looking for something? Porter asks from the doorway, his casualness too studied to be genuine. My omeprazole is missing, I say, deliberately using the medication's technical name rather than the brand name he'd recognize. A small test. His expression doesn't flicker. Maybe you took it already? The steroids can make you forgetful. A reasonable suggestion. Except I know precisely what each medication looks like, and I haven't taken this one yet. Moreover, Porter shouldn't know about steroid-induced memory issues unless he's been researching medication side effects, something he's shown no interest in until now. Maybe, I concede, making a mental note to check our medicine cabinet camera footage later. Another of Uncle Frank's security measures, installed during Porter's client dinner last week. I'll help. You look for it tomorrow, Porter offers, his concern perfectly calibrated. You should get some rest. I nod, pretending to give up the search. When he leaves, I retrieve the backup medication I've kept hidden in a vitamin bottle. Another precaution that seemed paranoid until this moment. Later that night, the security alert on my phone confirms what I suspected. Porter entered the bathroom. At 6:42 p.m., opened my medication organizer and removed a pill. The small camera disguised as an air freshener captured the entire sequence. I forward the footage to Uncle Frank with a simple message. It's starting. His reply is immediate. Meeting tomorrow, 10 a.m. The usual place. Sleep eludes me despite the medication. Porter's escalation from financial betrayal to potentially tampering with my medical treatment crosses a line that sends adrenaline coursing through my system. The danger is no longer abstract or future-oriented. It's present, tangible, and potentially life-threatening. Morning brings a new development. Over breakfast, Porter casually mentions that he's updated our home insurance policy. just routine renewal, he explains, sliding a document across the table for my signature. They needed both signatures since we're co-owners. I scan the paperwork, keeping my expression neutral despite the alarm bells ringing in my mind. The coverage amounts for personal property have increased significantly, particularly the sections covering jewelry, art, and collectibles. Items that could mysteriously disappear in a break-in. Seems like a big increase, I observe mildly. Are we really insured for too little before? Porter's smile doesn't reach his eyes. The agent recommended it. Property values have gone up, and replacement costs aren't what they used to be. I sign the document, making a mental note to contact the insurance company directly later. Another thread to pull, another document to add to the growing file. I might be late tonight, Porter adds, checking his watch. Quarterly planning meeting that can't be rescheduled. No problem, I reply, matching his casual tone. I have a follow-up appointment at the cancer center anyway. This is a lie. My next scheduled appointment isn't until tomorrow, but I need freedom to meet Uncle Frank without Porter tracking my whereabouts? The cancer center has become my cover story, the one place Porter never questions my presence. Once he leaves, I contact our home insurance company using the direct line I found in our previous policy documents, not the number on the paperwork. Porter provided. I'm calling about a policy update my husband submitted recently, I explained to the agent. Yes, Mrs. Matthews. The changes were processed yesterday. Is there a problem? Just confirming the details. There was a significant increase in our personal property coverage. The agent checks the records. Yes, particularly for jewelry, electronics, and artwork. The documentation your husband provided included recent appraisals showing substantial value. Appraisals I've never seen, for valuation increases on items that are conveniently small and portable. And was there any other change to the policy I should be aware of? Let me check. Yes, there was one other modification. Mr. Matthews added a rider covering loss due to domestic disputes or separation. It's not standard, but we can include it for situations where couples are experiencing difficulties. The implication is clear. Porter is setting the stage for items to disappear during our supposed marital conflict, items he's recently had appraised at inflated values. Thank you, I say, maintaining composure despite the chill spreading through me. That clarifies everything. At precisely 10 a.m., I meet Uncle Frank at our secure location, a private room in the public library he reserves under a pseudonym. The library's strict privacy policies and lack of surveillance cameras make it ideal for our strategy sessions. The insurance policy is just the beginning, Uncle Frank says without preamble, spreading documents across the table. There's been a significant acceleration in his activities across the board. He shows me bank statements, transfer records, email exchanges, all indicating Porter is compressing his original timeline. What was planned for mid-October is now being implemented in phases beginning immediately. What triggered this? I ask, scanning the evidence of Porter's increasing desperation. Uncle Frank slides a medical report across the table, my latest scan results showing significant tumor reduction. The report Porter shouldn't have seen yet, as it was just processed. Yesterday. He accessed your medical portal yesterday using your old password, Uncle Frank explains. The good news about your health is bad news for his plan. The realization strikes with perfect clarity. My recovery threatens everything Porter has orchestrated. His entire exit strategy depends on my declining health, a condition that's no longer cooperating with his timeline. If I'm getting better, I begin. Then he needs to move now, Uncle Frank finishes grimly, before your improving health makes his actions more suspicious. The danger isn't just accelerating, it's changing form, adapting to my unexpected recovery just as cancer cells mutate to survive treatment. Porter isn't just leaving anymore. He's rushing to ensure I'm left with nothing before I become strong enough to fight back. The conference room at Uncle Frank's accounting firm feels like a war room. and in many ways, it is. Uncle Frank has assembled what he calls our response team, trusted professionals who will help execute our counterattack. Everyone here has signed confidentiality agreements, Uncle Frank assures me, closing the door after verifying no one followed me to this meeting. But they only know their specific parts of the situation. Operational security, as we discussed. I scan the faces around the table. Rebecca Chen, a family law attorney specializing in high-conflict divorce. Michael Torres from Bank Security. At First National, my bank, not Porter's. Dr. Patel, who has taken personal time to attend, and Detective Sarah Ingram from the Financial Crimes Division, an old colleague of Uncle Frank's. Thank you all for coming, I begin, my voice stronger than it's been in months. The urgency of the situation has burned away the fog of treatment fatigue. I know Uncle Frank has briefed you on your specific areas of concern, but let me provide the complete picture. For the next 20 minutes, I outline Porter's betrayal, the financial theft, the career sabotage, the medical manipulation, the insurance fraud preparation, and now, the acceleration of his plans. I present the evidence methodically, my years of financial compliance work evident in the organized documentation. As of this morning, he's transferred approximately $412,000 from our joint assets. I conclude. He's established his exit strategy with Meridian Financial, documented false medical decline despite my improving condition, and begun what appears to be insurance fraud preparation. Most concerning, there's evidence of medication tampering. Dr. Patel speaks first, her professional demeanor barely containing her anger. The medication interference alone is potentially criminal. If he's removing anti-nausea medication, it could compromise your treatment adherence and recovery. Detective Ingram nods. The financial evidence shows clear intent and premeditation. The transfers, particularly those disguised as medical expenses, constitute fraud. The corporate espionage angle with Meridian adds another dimension of criminal liability. Rebecca, the divorce attorney, studies my documentation with practiced eyes. This is one of the most thoroughly documented cases of marital financial fraud. I've seen. The challenge isn't proving what he's done, it's stopping him before he completes his plan. Which brings us to why we're here today, Uncle Frank says, taking control of the meeting. Anna's situation presents unique challenges. Porter is accelerating his timeline because her medical improvement threatens his narrative. We need to implement countermeasures immediately. For the next hour, we craft a multi-layered strategy. Each professional contributes their expertise to a plan that will protect me physically, financially, and legally. Michael from Bank Security initiates emergency protocols for my accounts. We're implementing what we call a silent lock. Explains. Your accounts appear normal to anyone checking balances or attempting routine transactions, but any transfer over $1,000 will trigger a 72-hour security review. Porter won't know the security flag exists until he tries to move money. Rebecca outlines the legal strategy. We'll file for emergency financial restraining orders first thing tomorrow. The documentation you've gathered provides ample justification. This will legally freeze your joint assets while the court reviews the evidence of financial exploitation of a medically vulnerable spouse. Dr. Patel's contribution focuses on my medical security. I've already moved all your prescriptions to the hospital pharmacy where we have strict identity verification protocols. Additionally, I've documented your actual prognosis and treatment response in contrast to what Porter has been telling others. The discrepancy is significant evidence of his deception. Detective Ingram explains her role. Based on the evidence of financial fraud and potentially criminal interference with medical treatment, we have grounds to open an investigation. This allows us to legally obtain Porter's communications with Meridian and Vanessa, which could reveal additional criminal conspiracy. The plan encompasses every aspect of Porter's betrayal, but it's the timing that's most critical. Porter is moving quickly, but we need to move faster, and with perfect coordination. When do we execute? I ask, reviewing the timeline we've established. Uncle, Frank looks at each team member for confirmation before answering. The financial safeguards will be in place by end of day. Legal filings happen first thing tomorrow. The detectives' inquiries begin simultaneously. But most importantly, we need to secure your physical safety immediately. This is the part of the plan I've been most resistant to, acknowledging that Porter's desperation might extend beyond financial betrayal to something more immediately dangerous. I can have a patrol car monitoring your neighborhood starting tonight, Detective Ingram offers. Unofficially, of course, until we file formal charges. I shake my head. That would alert him. I need him to believe his plan is still working. Then you can't go home, Dr. Patel says firmly. Medical advice. Your safety is non-negotiable. The room falls silent as they wait for my decision. The logical choice is clear. Stay away from Porter. Execute our countermeasures from a position of safety. But logic competes with a deeper instinct. The need to see his face when he realizes I've outmaneuvered him. I have another option, I say finally. One that gives us everything we need without alerting Porter prematurely. I outline my alternative, a strategy that maintains my apparent vulnerability while positioning our alliance for maximum impact. It's risky, but it addresses both the practical necessities and my personal need for resolution. When I finish, Uncle, Frank studies me with a mixture of concern and pride. It's your call, Anna, but whatever you decide, you're not facing this alone anymore. I look around at these professionals who've become my allies, people willing to use their expertise to help me counter Porter's betrayal. For months, I felt increasingly isolated as Porter systematically disconnected me from support systems. Now, I have something he doesn't expect, a team of specialists as methodical and determined as he is. We move tonight, I decide. Porter thinks cancer has weakened me, made me vulnerable. It's time he learns what fighting for survival really teaches you, Detective Ingram nods approvingly. About strength in unexpected places. Exactly, I reply, gathering my documentation. And about how dangerous it is to underestimate someone with nothing left to lose. The house is quiet when Porter returns, home at 9:30 p.m. From my position on the living room couch, strategically placed to appear casual while maintaining clear sightlines to all entrances, I watch him process the scene. Dimmed lights, my favorite blanket draped over my legs, a half-empty mug of tea on the side table, and medical documents spread across my lap. You're still up? He observes, surprise poorly disguised as concern. Rough day? Interesting day, I correct, keeping my voice deliberately weak. I got some news at my appointment. His body language shifts subtly, a slight tensing, a microscopic narrowing of eyes. News from my oncologist means a potential disruption to his timeline. Good news would interfere with his exit strategy. Bad news might accelerate it. Oh? He sets down his briefcase, maintaining careful distance. What did Dr. Patel say? I gesture to the medical files beside me. It's complicated. She gave me all my records to review, said I should understand exactly where things stand. Porter's gaze flickers to the documents, genuine medical files from Dr. Patel, though not the ones he thinks. These are deliberately selected to appear concerning without revealing my actual improving condition. You shouldn't strain yourself with medical jargon, he says, moving toward the papers with obvious intent to examine, perhaps remove them. Let me put those away, for now. Actually, I interject, I've been going through them with Uncle Frank. He's been helping me organize everything. Porter freezes mid-step. Frank was here? Today? He left about an hour ago. I adjust my position, allowing a grimace of discomfort to cross my face. Performance for his benefit. He helped me understand some things that have been unclear. The implied threat hangs between us. Uncle Frank's involvement represents a variable Porter hasn't accounted for. A financial expert potentially examining records Porter doesn't want scrutinized. What things? His voice maintains its solicitous tone, but a new wariness enters his posture. I take a careful sip of now cold tea, drawing out the moment. Insurance matters mostly, policy questions. I gesture vaguely at the documents. Medical, coverage concerns. The deliberate vagueness is calculated to unsettle him, to make him wonder exactly what we've discovered without confirming anything specific. His response will reveal which aspects of his betrayal trouble him most. "Insurance is my department," he says with forced lightness. "You should have waited for me." That's what Uncle Frank said, that you've been handling everything. I meet his eyes directly. Every single detail. Something in my gaze must communicate more than my words, because Porter abruptly changes tactics. "You look exhausted, Anna." His voice softens with practiced concern. "Let me help you to bed. We can discuss all this tomorrow when you're stronger." The irony nearly makes me laugh. Tomorrow is when our countermeasures activate, when his accounts freeze, when legal notices arrive, when Detective Ingram's official inquiries begin. Tomorrow is precisely when I don't need to be stronger, because the systems we've put in place will operate regardless of my physical condition. "I'm actually feeling unusually clear-headed tonight," I reply, maintaining eye contact. Dr. Patel adjusted my medication, reduced some of the drugs that were causing brain fog. This information, true but previously withheld from Porter, visibly disturbs him. His entire strategy depends on my diminished capacity, my reliance on his management of our affairs. "That's great," he manages unconvincingly. "Still, rest is important. Doctor's orders." Speaking of doctor's orders, I continue as if he hadn't spoken. Dr. Patel had some concerns about my medication adherence. Apparently, some of my blood work shows inconsistent levels, almost as if I've been missing doses. The color drains from Porter's face so subtly that only someone watching for it would notice. "The side effects can make it hard to keep track," he offers weakly. "That's why I use my pill organizer," I counter. "The one you helped me set up. With each day's medications, carefully sorted." He doesn't respond immediately, calculating his next move. I can almost see the risk assessment happening behind his eyes. How much do I know? What evidence exists? How to maintain the facade a little longer? "Anna, what's really going on?" he finally asks, abandoning the concerned spouse script for a more direct approach. "You seem different tonight." I am different. I slowly reach for a folder hidden beneath the medical documents, the folder containing printouts of his financial transfers, email exchanges with Vanessa, the Meridian employment contract, and photographs of him removing medication from my cow. Organizer. Cancer changes people, Porter. Makes them see things more clearly. Makes them understand what matters. His eyes fix on the folder, but he doesn't reach for it. "What is that?" "Everything," I answer simply. "Everything you didn't think I was strong enough to discover, organized enough to document, or alive enough to use against you." The facade crumbles completely. Anger replaces concern. Calculation replaces compassion. This is the real Porter, the one I've glimpsed in unguarded moments over recent months. "You have no idea what you're talking about," he snaps. "The chemo is making you paranoid." "Maybe," I concede, opening the folder to reveal the first page, a bank statement with his unauthorized transfers highlighted in vivid yellow. But Uncle Frank isn't on chemotherapy. Neither is Detective Ingram from Financial Crimes. Neither is Rebecca Chen, the attorney who filed emergency financial orders this afternoon. I hand him the folder, watching realization dawn as he flips through the meticulously organized evidence of his betrayal. "While you were planning my convenient decline," I continue, my voice growing stronger with each word, "I was building something you never expected, an alliance of experts documenting your every move." Porter's expression hardens from shock to calculation. "These are misunderstandings I can easily explain. Temporary financial arrangements during a difficult time. Save it for your arraignment, I reply, revealing my phone on the cushion beside me, recording our entire conversation. The medication tampering alone is enough for criminal charges. He stares at the phone, then at me, the full magnitude of his miscalculation finally registering. You couldn't have put this together, not while you were sick, not alone. That was your fundamental mistake, I tell him, rising from the couch with more strength than he's seen in months. Believing that, cancer made me weaker, when in reality, it taught me exactly how to fight against something trying to destroy me from the inside. The doorbell rings. Perfect timing as arranged with Detective Ingram, who waits outside with the financial crimes warrant. That would be the detective, I inform him calmly. With a warrant for financial records and electronic devices, Meridian. Financial has already been served with subpoenas regarding your corporate espionage arrangements. As Porter's world collapses around him, I feel no victory, only resolution. Cancer taught me that survival isn't about winning. It's about continuing despite the damage, about rebuilding what remains after devastating loss. The hidden insurance policy was just the beginning, I tell him as Detective Ingram's knock echoes, through our soon-to-be former home. My real revenge was refusing to be the victim in your story. The morning after Porter's arrest brings a strange quietness to the house, a silence that feels neither empty nor lonely, but cleansed. I move through the room slowly, not from weakness, but from deliberate presence, reclaiming spaces that had become infiltrated by betrayal. My phone buzzes with a text from Detective Ingram. Arraignment set for 2 p.m. Prosecutor recommends you not attend. Your statement is sufficient for now. I appreciate her concern, but have no intention of following this recommendation. Seeing the legal consequences unfold is an essential part of my healing process, a concrete manifestation of justice that cancer patients rarely get from their disease. Uncle Frank arrives at 11 a.m., his familiar knock a comforting rhythm. He brings coffee and legal updates in equal measure. Porter spent the night in holding, he reports, settling into what has become his usual chair at my kitchen table. No bail hearing until after arraignment. His attorney tried to expedite, but the medication tampering charges complicate things significantly. I sip my coffee, real coffee, not the weak tea Porter insisted was better for my condition. Another, small freedom reclaimed. What about Vanessa? I ask. Cooperating, apparently. Detective Ingram said she's providing evidence in exchange for immunity on lesser charges. The corporate espionage angle with Meridian has her particularly concerned. About professional consequences, I nod, unsurprised. Porter's careful compartmentalization of his betrayal meant that Vanessa likely didn't know the full extent of his actions, particularly the medical manipulation. And Meridian? Doing what companies always do, distancing themselves completely. Their official statement claims they had no knowledge of Mr. Matthews' personal circumstances or financial activities. They've withdrawn the employment offer and are cooperating fully with investigators. Uncle Frank's tone conveys his skepticism about their claimed ignorance. The financial aftermath is crystallizing with remarkable speed. The emergency orders filed yesterday have frozen all assets Porter attempted to hide. The bank's fraud department has already identified backdated documents used to authorize certain transfers. The insurance company is investigating the recent policy changes made under suspicious circumstances. What once seemed an impenetrable web of deception now unravels with almost mechanical efficiency, each thread pulling loose another. The prosecutor wants to meet this afternoon after the arraignment, Uncle Frank continues. They're particularly interested in the documented timeline showing how Porter's financial activities corresponded with your treatment schedule. That was your insight, I remind him, seeing the pattern when I was too close to recognize it. Uncle Frank shakes his head. I provided forensic expertise, but you were the one who kept meticulous records despite everything you were going through. Most people in your situation would have been understandably focused solely on survival. Cancer gives you a different relationship with time, I explain. finding words for something I've felt but never articulated. When your future becomes uncertain, you become hyper-aware of patterns, of inconsistencies. You notice what doesn't align because your entire existence depends on spotting threats early. My phone chimes with an email notification from Dr. Patel. My latest blood work results show continued improvement. My body is healing in parallel with my life circumstances, a synchronicity that feels appropriate. At 1:30 p.m., dressed in professional attire I haven't worn in months, I enter the courthouse with Uncle Frank beside me. The prosecutor, a sharp-eyed woman named Elena Vasquez, meets us in the hallway. "Mrs. Matthews, thank you for coming, though it wasn't strictly necessary today." Her handshake is firm, her assessment of me clinical but compassionate. "I needed to be here," I explain simply. She nods in understanding. "Your documentation has been invaluable. The financial fraud alone would make for a strong case, but the medication tampering elevates this significantly." "Will he be held without bail?" Uncle Frank asks. "We're requesting it based on the nature of the charges and flight risk. The evidence of preparations to relocate, combined with the severity of potential penalties, makes a compelling argument." The courtroom feels both foreign and familiar. I've testified in financial compliance cases before, but never as a victim. The polished wood, formal proceedings, and legal terminology create a framework of order around chaos, something I've craved throughout my cancer journey. Porter enters in custody, the orange jumpsuit a jarring contrast to his usual tailored appearance. He scans the gallery, freezing momentarily when he sees me. I meet his gaze steadily, neither hostile nor fearful, simply present and aware. The proceedings move with procedural efficiency. Charges read: financial fraud, exploitation of a medically vulnerable spouse, interference with medical treatment, attempted insurance fraud, corporate espionage. Porter pleads not guilty to all counts, his attorney arguing for bail with practiced indignation. Judge Harriet Coleman listens to both sides before rendering her decision. Bail denied. The combination of flight risk and the nature of charges involving exploitation of a seriously ill spouse presents community safety concerns the court cannot overlook. As Porter is led away, I feel a complex emotion that isn't quite satisfaction or closure, but something more nuanced, the relief of a threat contained, a danger neutralized. Outside the courthouse, Rebecca Chen, my divorce attorney, waits with updates on the civil proceedings running parallel to the criminal case. "The financial restraining orders have been extended pending full investigation," she explains. "Additionally, we've secured exclusive use of the primary residence for you during proceedings." "And the insurance policy?" I ask. "My policy?" "Completely protected," she confirms. Ironically, it's now the only financial asset not entangled in freezes and court orders. The $500,000 remains secure in trust exactly as you established it. The policy I purchased after my mother's death, intended originally as protection for Porter if I didn't survive, has instead become my financial safety net in the aftermath of his betrayal. The ultimate reversal. As we walk toward the parking lot, reporters gather at a respectful distance, alerted by the unusual nature of the case. I decline comment, but their presence underscores the public aspect of what I once considered intensely private pain. "How are you feeling?" Uncle Frank asks quietly as we reach the car. I consider the question seriously, taking inventory of my emotional and physical state in the way cancer patients learn to do with practiced precision. Like I'm finally receiving proper treatment for everything that was making me sick, I answer honestly. Not just the cancer. He nods in understanding as we drive away from the courthouse, away from Porter, away from betrayal, and toward whatever healing comes next. 4 months after Porter's arrest, I ring the ceremonial bell in the oncology center, marking the completion of my treatment protocol. The sound reverberates through the unit, drawing smiles and applause from nurses who've become something closer to friends. Dr. Patel watches with professional satisfaction, her typically reserved demeanor softened by genuine pleasure at my progress. "Final scans are clear," she confirms as we review my results in her office afterward. "We'll continue monitoring every 3 months, but medically speaking, you're in remission." The word hangs between us, precious and surreal. Remission, a state of absence. Cancer cells no longer detectable. A parallel to my personal life, where Porter's presence has also been removed, his toxicity excised like malignant tissue. 2 recoveries simultaneously, I observe, accepting the printed summary of my medical journey, a document that will join the meticulous records I've kept throughout this ordeal. Dr. Patel nods in understanding. The body and life rebuilding in tandem. Not a coincidence, in my experience. Outside in the parking lot, Uncle Frank waits to drive me to another important appointment. The criminal proceedings against Porter continue their methodical progression through the justice system, but today focuses on my financial rebuilding, a meeting with Marathon Financial about returning to my compliance position. "How did it go?" he asks as I settle into the passenger seat. "Officially in remission," I reply, the words still new on my tongue. His smile carries the weight of our shared journey, the late nights documenting evidence, the strategic planning sessions, the courthouse visits as Porter's case advances through preliminary hearings. Perfect timing for your job interview. Less interview, more reinstatement discussion, I correct, reviewing my notes for the meeting. My former supervisor has made it clear that my position remains open, my expertise in financial compliance now enhanced by first-hand experience with fraud detection. The Marathon Financial building appears ahead, glass and steel reflecting clouds that scatter afternoon sunlight. I haven't been here since my diagnosis 14 months ago, when cancer became my full-time occupation and Porter's betrayal my unwanted second job. "Ready?" Uncle Frank asks as we park. I consider the question seriously. Am I ready to reclaim this part of my identity? To return to professional life after so long focused solely on survival? The answer comes with surprising clarity. More than, "Ready?" I reply, gathering my portfolio. "It's time to use everything I've learned." We walk through the lobby where security staff greet me with recognition and welcome. The elevator rises smoothly to the compliance division on the 14th floor. Former colleagues offer hugs and handshakes, their genuine warmth confirming that Porter's attempts to isolate me from my professional network failed as completely as his other schemes. My supervisor, Elaine Winters, ushers us into the conference room where the reinstatement committee waits. Their expressions convey what the subsequent conversation confirms. My return is a foregone conclusion, the meeting merely a formality to establish terms and timing. "We've created a new role," Elaine explains, sliding a position description across. "The table. Senior Advisor on Financial Exploitation Prevention. Your experience makes you uniquely qualified." I scan the document, noting the responsibilities focused on protecting vulnerable clients, elderly investors, those with medical circumstances affecting financial management, individuals experiencing sudden wealth changes. My personal ordeal, repurposed as professional expertise. "When can you start?" Elaine asks. The question represents more than employment. It's about rejoining life fully, about transformation from patient to participant. Cancer and betrayal both attempted to diminish, me to reduce my existence to merely surviving their assaults. Returning to work means thriving despite them. "I already have," I answer, presenting the portfolio containing my analysis of recent exploitation cases, work I've been doing informally during recovery. This is who I am now. 1 year to the day after Porter's arrest, I sit in my home office, redecorated, reclaimed, purged of his presence, reviewing the final divorce settlement. The legal document represents the formal conclusion to 15 years of marriage, though the emotional ending occurred long before the paperwork. The terms reflect Porter's diminished negotiating position, his guilty plea to reduced charges of Financial fraud and reckless endangerment resulted in a 3-year sentence, currently being served at Lakewood Minimum Security Facility. Most of our marital assets have been returned to my control, minus legal fees and restitution payments. The insurance policy remains untouched in trust, a financial safety net I no longer need, but maintain as prudent security against future uncertainties. Uncle Frank arrives for our standing Sunday brunch tradition, carrying fresh bagels and the financial section of the weekend paper. These regular meetings have evolved from crisis management to friendship, our conversations expanding beyond Porter's betrayal to encompass new possibilities. The Peterson case was mentioned in the journal, he comments, referencing my most recent work at Marathon, identifying a financial advisor who had been manipulating elderly clients' accounts. Not by name, of course, but the new protective protocols your team developed got significant coverage. I smile, setting aside the divorce papers to pour coffee. The detecting financial exploitation algorithm is being adopted by 3 other institutions. Turns out my experience has broader applications than we anticipated. Transforming trauma into protection for others, Uncle Frank observes, his expression thoughtful. That's always been your approach, hasn't it? Even with the foundation work. The foundation, my newest project, uses a portion of the recovered assets to fund education about financial exploitation targeting medically vulnerable individuals. What began as a small personal initiative has grown to partner with 3 major cancer treatment centers, providing both preventive education and recovery assistance. I keep thinking about something Dr. Patel told me during treatment, I reply, warming my hands around the coffee mug. She said cancer patients develop a different relationship with threats. We learn to recognize them earlier, to take them more seriously, and to mobilize resources more effectively. Survival intelligence, Uncle Frank suggests. Exactly. The why, skills that helped me identify and document Porter's betrayal aren't unique to me. They're adaptations many patients develop out of necessity. The foundation just helps make those adaptations more accessible, more systematized. Through the office window, spring sunlight illuminates the garden I've replanted. Another reclamation project, transforming the neglected space into something new and deliberately chosen. The physical representation of my broader life changes. Have you decided about the house? Uncle Frank asks, following my gaze to the garden. I nod, having finally reached clarity on this last major decision. I'm selling. Too many layers of memory here, both medical and marital. The new condo downtown puts me closer to work and the foundation office. Fresh start, he approves, though you've already created that for yourself in every way that matters. The observation resonates with truth. The past 2 years have stripped away so much: health temporarily, marriage permanently, financial security briefly. But what remains has been consciously rebuilt, deliberately chosen rather than passively inherited from my pre-cancer life. My regular scans remain clear. The financial systems I've helped implement at Marathon protect vulnerable clients from exploitation. The Foundation's educational programs reach patients when they're most at risk. My testimony in Porter's case has led to enhanced penalties for those who target medically vulnerable individuals. These outcomes weren't part of any revenge fantasy I might have harbored during dark treatment days. They represent something more substantial: the transformation of individual suffering into systemic protection, personal betrayal into communal safeguards. You know what's ironic? I muse, refilling our coffee cups. Porter's betrayal during my cancer actually helped ensure I survived both. Uncle Frank raises an eyebrow questioningly. Fighting him gave me purpose beyond just enduring treatment. I explain. Documenting his actions gave me focus when I could have been overwhelmed. Protecting myself from his betrayal became inseparable from protecting myself from cancer. They were both threats requiring the same vigilance, the same strategic thinking, the same refusal to surrender. In the strangest way, Porter's attempt to exploit my illness became a force that helped me overcome it. A paradox I've come to recognize as part of my unlikely path to healing. Not just surviving, but transforming. Not just recovering, but rebuilding with purpose. Not just getting justice, but creating protection for others. That, ultimately, is the most complete revenge. Thriving in ways my betrayer never anticipated, never intended, and can never take away. 2 years after my final chemotherapy treatment, I stand at a podium in the grand ballroom of the Westbrook Hotel, surveying the audience gathered for the first national conference on financial protection for medical patients. Hospital administrators, financial compliance officers, patient advocates, and legal experts fill the seats, a coalition born from my individual experience but now expanding far beyond it. When I was diagnosed with stage 3 breast cancer, I begin, my voice steady and clear, I believed my greatest battle would be against the disease itself. I was prepared for the physical challenges of treatment, the emotional toll of uncertainty, the logistical complications of putting life on hold while fighting for survival. The room remains silent, attendees leaning forward slightly. A collective gesture of attention I've come to recognize during my speaking engagements. What I wasn't prepared for was discovering that while cancer attacked my body, my husband was systematically dismantling our financial future. I wasn't prepared to learn that the person who had promised to stand beside me in sickness and in health was instead exploiting my illness to fund his exit strategy. I pause, taking a sip of water. These presentations no longer trigger the emotional response they once did. The story has been distilled through repetition into something purposeful rather than merely painful. But today, I'm not here to tell you a story about betrayal. I'm here to tell you about transformation, about how the skills I developed to protect myself from financial exploitation during illness have become the foundation for systemic changes that protect thousands of others. On the screen behind me, data appears showing the impact of the protective protocols developed through the Foundation, statistics on prevented fraud, recovered assets, and successful prosecutions of those who target medically vulnerable individuals. When we launched the Medical Financial Protection Initiative 18 months ago, we identified 3 critical intervention points where patients are most vulnerable to exploitation. I gesture to the visual representation of our framework. During diagnosis shock, when cognitive processing is compromised by emotional overwhelm. During treatment fatigue, when physical depletion makes monitoring financial details nearly impossible. And during recovery transition, when changing capabilities create new vulnerabilities. The audience, professionals who encounter these patterns daily, nod in recognition. By implementing targeted protections at each stage, participating institutions have reduced financial exploitation of patients by 64% in less than 2 years. The specialized algorithms we've developed have flagged suspicious transaction patterns that might otherwise have gone unnoticed until irreparable damage occurred. In the front row, Uncle Frank watches with quiet pride. At 72, he's officially retired but serves as the Foundation's board chairman, his forensic accounting expertise guiding our most technical initiatives. Beside him sits Dr. Patel, whose medical insights ensure our protocols align with actual patient experiences and capabilities. The hidden insurance policy that first protected me from complete financial devastation has grown into a comprehensive system of safeguards that protect patients across the country. I continue. What began as one person's defensive strategy has become an institutional framework for prevention. As I conclude my presentation and answer questions from the audience, I'm struck by how completely circumstances have transformed. Porter, who once dismissed my career as working in banking, now sits in a minimum security prison while financial institutions nationwide implement protocols I've helped develop. The skills he underestimated have become the foundation of systems protecting others from people exactly like him. Later, as I sign copies of my book, Financial Immunity, Protecting Your Assets During Health Crises, a young woman approaches with tears in her eyes. Your foundation's monitoring program flagged unusual withdrawals from my accounts during my lymphoma treatment, she tells me, voice catching. It turned out my brother-in-law had been using my medical power of attorney to transfer funds. Without the alert system, I might have lost everything. Her words, variations of which I've heard countless times, confirm what I've come to understand. True recovery isn't just personal healing, but creating meaning from suffering. The most complete response to betrayal isn't revenge but reformation, changing systems so the same harm can't befall others. The hidden insurance policy saved my financial future, but the real revenge was transforming a private trauma into public. Protection? Ensuring Porter's legacy isn't what he stole from me, but what I built from the wreckage he left behind. Up next, you've got 2 more standout stories right on your screen. If this one hit the mark, you won't want to pass these up. Just click and check them out. And don't forget to subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you don't miss any upload from us.